Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Wealth Society and my workshops that I'm doing free this week. I'm really excited to be talking to you again today. If you want to grab your workbook or just kind of want you to relax, and this isn't going to be like super informative. You have to do lots of things today. Just want to talk about what we've did all week. You've did a lot this week if you're watching all of it. You've really gone through a lot of stuff. And just congratulate yourself because you have did all kinds of things this week. And I'm very proud of you for doing that. And I really just want you to pat yourself on the back. So Monday, we learned about how we actually measured the thoughts that you have that hold you back from money. And I kind of had you write those down and to see what, was really going on in your mind. And when we did your money map, it's pretty common. I mean, usually the money map is really insightful when I do it, either one-on-one or group with a client, because people will like discover a lot. And a lot of times from that first session, that will tell me about their whole experience that they had maybe as a child and thoughts that they had. Because sometimes we have these traumatic events. And if you're, I mean, because I'm a therapist, I throw around trauma, blah, blah, blah. That's what I kind of did in a past life is trauma counseling, and I still do occasionally. But a lot of times people will go, oh, yeah, I didn't think about it, but my parents, went bankrupt, and it was like really a devastating thing. We had this business, something happened, and we went bankrupt. Yeah, it really probably affected me. My parents, got really depressed. We didn't have the money that we had once had. So I know, and they're like, I'm like, well, how does that affect you? Well, I had this, like a person will say, well, and I'm just kind of categorizing for a bunch of stories, so there's no confidentiality or anything, but it really made me a fear of money. I would like to start a business, but I always have that fear of what happened to my parents. And so we'll know that that's usually something that really needs to be worked on, because sometimes people will say, oh no, I don't have this, and but then you get really talking, and they'll just a lot of times start bringing up stories. And I in my past, I mean, being a counselor turned coach, that there's things that are hidden and that still bother them. A lot of times, like a parent's death, having their mom die when they were young and maybe she'd been working and supporting them, is another thing that really may have bothered someone. And that often happens because then they have this huge loss. Maybe they had a good life before, then the mom, so there's all these things, and you're like, oh, what does that have to do with me now? Especially men will say that, and it's like, and and then you could just kind of hear them saying the story, and a lot of times they will come up with it on their own, especially like when I start having, them look at statements about, how they're feeling, and they're like, oh yeah, about that event. I may have felt shame because if you lived in a small town and somebody went bankrupt, these kids still had to go to school, knowing their parents had went back. There was financial shame. There's a lot that goes around, and when they, talked about their own finances, they'd always like lived in like constant fear, never really, you know, did any risky investments or anything because they always just fear that they're going to lose everything. And so this really can drive a lot of your decisions because always have fear or that you can't do it. Another thing people will have, and sometimes it's not always their extreme childhood, maybe they got fired by a boss, even if the boss was wacky, in their earlier 20s, maybe high school or whenever. And that's usually a really demoralizing event for someone. They may was like, oh, it worked out all fine. But some people just have that because it's that fear of reaching and doing again. Until you really clear that out and work that out, um, it affects you because sometimes you won't go all in on your goals because like I tried that. I had that job. I got fired. They have that real lack of confidence that comes from it and a lot of embarrassment and shame. And shame is something that really will hold us back because shame really goes to, well, I'm probably not good at it, and blaming yourself. A lot of times people isolate. So there's that. And so that's the first day. It's really important work to see that. And then a lot of times with debt, when I get to the debt portion, that people will kind of, get talk and start crying. Oh, I have so much debt. I invested for my business. I kept, invested in this programs, invested in, and I like did whatever, and I haven't been able to pay it back. And I still have my student loans. And it'll just be like this crushing feeling where people sometimes won't even like look at really how to solve the problem. You have all these people going Dave Ramsey stuff, but sometimes financial advice will even further shame these people. They may say something to friends, and friends will be like, "Oh, just do this, go and it feels like everybody's really shaming them, and they feel worse about self, and they get resistance, and they don't do things. So sometimes people need to do the inner work to get to the financial part that helps you to really to get to where you need to go. Because I've known of people. I was on a group once, and we were working with some people, and we were like, why didn't you refinance this? And they're like, oh, we don't really look at the bank stuff anymore. And it was like they were paying like a lot, and interest rates had went down alone, and they were just like, oh, we just, I guess that was really stupid, but it was like so painful. They weren't even looking at solving that problem. And so like when they refinanced, they were able to pay off save like a lot. So that's a very good thing that people can do. So it's when we have that money map, that's the first thing we do. And I collect all that information. And some people may have not liked because it works with income and stuff, but it's like this works with any of your wealth things, like working for your retirement. That's another one. A lot of people either will look at their retirement every day, get freaked out because the money's going down in the stock market, or they won't look at it, or they won't invest like they should. Sometimes people have 401ks and with work, and there's not enough information, and so they don't think there's anything they can do. Instead of like calling whoever's working with them and really working on getting those numbers together for retirement. Because a lot of times people are ashamed to admit they don't know. They have all this fear, and they get triggered by like looking, and they're like, they know that's not enough, so they just don't look at it. So there's a lot of inner work that we need to do. We also looked at overcoming stress and overwhelm. And that is something that is such a big part of my group that people really enjoy. Everyone has stress and overwhelm. We talk about Americans are more stressed, more overwhelmed. If you've ever felt stress, type a yes. I don't care if it's on the replay, but just let me know, because that's, ridiculous. Everyone has had some kind of stress. But like COVID has put people in overwhelming amounts of stress. They may have had their kids remote learning. They have maybe been doing all of their work from home. They may have lost their job. They may have had a business loss. I mean, I know just in my community, there was like especially like restaurants and other things that closed and have never reopened. So those people are, greatly impacted. Some of them, may have had a lot of loans they had to pay off. Um, some of them, I know, closed businesses and opened another one. Um, so it's been a very stressful year. So, do you think when you're highly stressed, you're in your right mind? I know you're not in your right mind because I see people. A lot of times when business starts not going well, I've had people come in, I'm having panic attack. They'll tell me they're having panic attacks. And sometimes they're like, oh, I don't even know why. And then you're like, like looking when they have panic attacks, and it's like started when they were having a lot of trouble in their business. And when you're in panic, people will literally say, I can't even think straight. I'm so overwhelmed. So that's one thing that my program really offers. And I just want you to think, like, one thing, if you decide to just not, is do deep breathing when you're feeling overwhelmed. Relax your shoulders and your body. And then you take deep breaths in for the count of 8 and breathe out to the count of 8. And then breathe out slowly. But we always do the count of 8 because that relaxes the vagal nerve. And the vagal nerve goes through your brain down to your stomach and chest. And that's why a lot of times people would get tight chest, stomach doesn't feel well, because they have the vagal nerve all tightened up, and that relaxes it. Sometimes it's really important to maybe even do 5 minute meditation, just to get your brain in the best place where that you can really relax and be calm and just think straight, because it's common sense. Like if you're anxious and not feeling, and just have all these, I know when I get anxious, your thoughts still swirl. It's almost like you can't really think straight, and you're not in the flow. You're not in the creative mood. So we will work on that, and then I will send you a script that shows you these things, that shows you how to use the EFT tapping to calm down. I do a lot of this. I've been seeing remarkable progress. I was working on one lady with anxiety, and she did some EMDR, and for some reasons it was really triggering. So she was an EFT for other reasons. We started working on her anxiety, and the EFT tapping itself calms you down. If you've went through and did some of these with you felt relaxed. Like if I do these a bunch of times with clients in a day, it's really relaxing. You feel calm, you feel like you can think better. Life goes well. So there's that. So that is one thing, because even if you're a little bit overwhelmed and stressed, you're not at the top of your game, because you know what that feels like when you're in the flow and just everything is going right in your life. It's good for you. You get these creative ideas, and your business and everything pops up. It's just like if something goes wrong in your life or your business, you go into a panic mode. And I've seen people come in and they're just like, oh my God, this person quit, and they're just like panicking so much that they're not even thinking of like how they, and eventually people usually calm down, but it's just like, yeah, you're not at the top of your game when you're in panic and overwhelm. So that's one of the big benefits of my program, is getting overwhelmed and stress. So what is some other things? Interfere yesterday was a really great one too, because we really kind of defined your inner critic. Your inner critic is what always tells you or holds you back. It's that mean girl. It's always in there going, you can't do this, you can't do that. Or, we'll lose money, we better not even try. And so if you have voices telling you not to try, oftentimes you don't. You may have that inner dialogue. And this is where, like, someone has that past trauma of, like, their business. You know, maybe their parents had tried to grow in their business, but they didn't. And they actually had some big business losses and almost went bankrupt. And so they, like, may, you know, be in the business or a different business and really come up with that. And you know, every time they're like, no, I can't do that, you know, what happened to my parents, and it, you know, so it really holds them back, so they never do nothing, but they say they want to, but then they always get to the point of it and they don't. So those are some of the ways that this is so good for people. And there is just some wonder, because I have did this myself. I'm a nervous person. When you're taking like EFT training, you start working on yourself a lot. And I also did it with a coach. And you're like, oh my God, I didn't know all that stuff was, you know, bothering me, because you're like, it's really amazing, because when you're doing the tapping, you just start coming up in this other story. Oh yeah, and this bothered me. And you're like, oh, I don't need to know that. That's stupid. But people become so successful after doing this. Margaret Lynch has did this with CEOs. I've did with company leaders, people that are inventing new things and have all kinds of things. I've did it just with people that, you know, maybe their spending has gotten under control and they just need, you know, something change around. Because I've talked to people, you know, today they're like, what can we do for mindset? Well, you can do affirmations. You know, you can, you know, listen to them on the phone. You can, you know, see them on your computer. I mean, I've done all that stuff. One thing you should always do is, like, if you have an income goal, if you don't have an income goal, write one out. Put it where you can see it all the time. You know, maybe shouldn't be like, if you're getting too triggered by it, you know, maybe you need to adjust that. But that's always a reminder, and vision boards of where you're going. So that's one thing. Write that down. Even if you need to put it on your computer or on a mirror or somewhere where you see it in your office, write that down. Or maybe it's not an income goal. Maybe you have to sell a certain amount of cars. But there's something you can do about that, is always look for your goals. And I hope you got a lot of, because I had you record it in your workbook, is, you know, what are you resisting? Why are you procrastinating? A lot of times procrastination is, you don't really think you can do it, or you feel like something's too hard. And, you know, you get into this, well, I don't even know where to look to find it. Yeah, I can Google for hours, or I've tried that, but it's still not really helping me. And, you know, you get in such a tizzy that, yeah, you can't know what's going on. So just, I mean, this is just invaluable to how it gets your stress level down, and people, like, they all stop the procrastination and self-sabotage. So I've got, if you're in the workbook, I've given you a lot of space. So one thing I want you to do is to mark down your resistance. Like, what did you find about, what are some of your resisting thoughts of your inner critic? Just writing them down lets you know. So write some down. Okay, now I want you to flip them around, because I know a lot of times you're having this, like, it's too hard, I don't know how to do this. Well, what's the opposite of it's too hard? Maybe hard, but I can figure it out. Everything is figure outable. I think that's a Mary Forriello thing. I know, like, doing coaching and all of this stuff has been a way eye opening. If you would have told me probably a year ago I would be doing videos, I would be like, no way, because I mean, I don't know. I feel like tech was kind of hard for me. I was, you know, not really my kids. You know, they know how to do everything. But I, worked with some people that taught me how to do it, and I started doing it. So if I can figure out tech and things and different things, you can figure it out. Um, and so, I want you to flip that too. It may be hard, but I can figure it out. I can't do it. A lot of times that's like, people come, will come up, that's impossible. I could never do that. And this is the one that really gets to people most, because it's like, you don't even try. If you've got this as impossible, why would try? Um, maybe flip it to, maybe it's not impossible. Maybe I could do it. So if you're just giving yourself that little bit of, it's probably not impossible, because look around. What you're probably saying is impossible, someone else is doing. Like if you're saying, I'm a real estate agent, and it seems impossible to, for me to really make the big bucks. Everyone else has his leads, has this. It's not. And I know I've had different realtors, and they're like, well, they've taken all these classes and paid a lot of money, and they're like, oh, I'm still not, this is making enough, but it's all like their mindset and their inner work that's like holding them back. It's not the classes. If you're not even, I know people that have taken classes and they haven't did any of the work, and the coach will say, you need to do this, or people do this, they don't really do it, and so then they blame everything else. But they have this that I need, it's like sometimes you have to do a lot of work too. And a lot of times what people don't even hear is sometimes you have to do inner work. Um, and that's like your whole mindset, because if you're going with it's impossible, I mean, yeah. And instead of like really giving it a try, you don't. And so that's one thing that I see, you know, holds people up. So I want you to write those, and just write some positive affirmations for those that you're going to follow in the next few weeks. It may take you some time to come up with those, but yeah. So that's one of the things that really tends to bother people is they need to like at least repeat it in their head sometimes, because it is reconditioning their brain. I mean, just EFT tapping doesn't do it. I mean, when I do coaching, we work on their personal problems that they're having or whatever they need to work on because they need coaching. The other team brainstorms, and it's just a really, positive things. Group coaching, first I thought it'd be like, I wouldn't like it, but you get and you meet these other people going through things, and a lot of times they will have really good ideas. I mean, I'll coach you through things, but sometimes it's the group, and you make people and you can message each other, and it's really, really wonderful. So I just want to say I have my group. If you book a call within the next few hours, I'm giving a pretty big discount. If you just go to the Pocket Suite link and book a call or DM me, I'm giving a $300 discount off of today if you do decide to join, but it's good for till like 5 o'clock. You're not going to talk to me, but if you just book the call, that would be wonderful, because this stuff really works. I have, first of all, being a counselor, I'm a life learner. I love person down stuff, and I've taken like a lot of counseling, and a lot of it's like, just change your thoughts, you will do this, and blah blah blah, and that's called cognitive behavioral thought, and that works really well because it was working for depression, and it's the basis of mindset work. But especially what I started finding in people is like, oh, I've been through CBT, I've did all those affirmations, and they're just like, I still really have trouble with my mindset. And, and that's when because I know it's like, well, um, they'd had all this triggering stuff and, all this underneath stuff that that was just like popping up constantly. It's like, if you're trying to go forward and like, I'm going to do, this degree and I'm going to be successful, but you're sometimes people have had a lot of negative, it's just like constantly popping up. They may be having panic attacks and stuff. It does not make for success. And so I've, known that for over 20 years. It's not just you're changing your thoughts and thinking positive and yes, law of attraction, different things I believe work, but sometimes if you are starting out in a bad place or have had a lot, it doesn't work. And that's when people say, "Oh, trauma's when a soldier gets killed." It's not. A lot of people have money trauma and have had bad things in their life. Money problems are one of the biggest things why people divorce. If you ever had a fight about money, it's a big cause for stress. I've worked with all kinds of people. I've worked with trust fund babies. I've worked with very successful people that have made like really a lot of money. And people all still have problems. It's human nature. But I notice when people, like, because, when I have worked in the past with like Medicaid or people that are just, making it, it's like money is a constant stress because their jobs are really low paying or whatever. And so, like, if a car